single dad saw a little girl searching trash on Christmas Eve, and the truth left him stunned. It was Christmas Eve in a small town wrapped in shimmering lights, where carols floated through the frosty air and children pressed their faces against store windows, eyes wide with wonder at toys and sparkling decorations. But for Daniel Miller, a single father in his mid-30s, Christmas wasn't about the glitter. It was about survival. With 2 jobs barely covering rent and his 6-year-old son, Ethan, asking why Santa skipped their house every year, Daniel carried a weight heavier than the snow that piled on his old truck's roof. He wasn't bitter, just tired. Tired, but determined to give Ethan a world better than his own childhood of abandonment and silence. That evening, Daniel picked Ethan up from a friend's house after finishing a late shift. His hands ached from hauling packages at the warehouse, his stomach gnawed from skipping meals, but the sight of his boy's messy blonde hair and gap-toothed grin still melted the fatigue. They drove through town, past glowing shops, laughter spilling from restaurants, and families bustling with bags. For a fleeting second, Daniel wished he could stop, buy Ethan something wrapped in shiny paper, maybe hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. But his wallet said otherwise. As they neared their modest apartment complex, something caught Daniel's eye, something so out of place it made him slow the truck. Near the overflowing dumpster, under the street lamp's dim glow, a little girl no older than 8 rummaged through trash bags with her bare hands. Her coat was thin, sleeves frayed, and her shoes looked 2 sizes too big. She moved with quiet desperation, pulling out scraps of food, half-empty soda cans, anything that looked remotely useful. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. Ethan, wide-eyed in the passenger seat, whispered, "Dad, what's she doing?" For a moment, Daniel didn't answer. Because he wasn't sure how. He pulled over, his instincts louder than the biting wind. He told Ethan to stay in the truck and approached the girl cautiously, not wanting to frighten her. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, crouching to her level. "What are you looking for out here?" The girl froze, clutching a piece of stale bread to her chest like it was treasure. Her eyes were a piercing gray, filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. "I'm fine," she whispered. "Go away." Daniel's heart clenched. He recognized the tone. It was survival talking, the same one he'd carried as a boy when kindness felt like a trap. But something in him refused to walk away. "What's your name?" he asked gently. After a pause, she muttered, "Lily." "Well, Lily," Daniel said, offering a small smile, "you shouldn't be out here in the cold, digging through trash. Do you live nearby? Where are your parents?" Her eyes flickered, and she shook her head. "Don't got any." The words sliced through the night sharper than ice. "No parents. No warm home. Just a little girl scavenging on Christmas Eve." Daniel swallowed hard. "Are you hungry?" Her lips trembled, but she nodded. Without thinking twice, Daniel held out his hand. "Come on. I've got some food at home. Nothing fancy, but better than this. You don't have to be alone tonight." For a moment, she hesitated, suspicion etched across her small face. But then she glanced at Ethan, who had pressed his nose against the truck window, waving eagerly. Slowly, Lily slipped her cold hand into Daniel's rough one. Back at the apartment, Daniel set out what little he had: canned soup, a loaf of bread, and some apples. He apologized that it wasn't much, but to Lily, it was a feast. She ate quietly at first, then with ravenous urgency, until Ethan pushed his bowl toward her and said, "You can have mine too." Daniel watched his son with pride swelling in his chest. Despite having so little, Ethan's first instinct was to give. After dinner, they sat by their small artificial tree, secondhand and missing half its branches. Ethan dug out his only wrapped gift, a used toy truck Daniel had managed to buy at a thrift store, and placed it in Lily's lap. "Merry Christmas," he said. Lily's eyes widened. "For me?" Ethan grinned. "Yeah. You don't got nothing under the tree. Now you do." That was the moment the wall around her heart cracked. Tears welled in her eyes, and she hugged the truck to her chest as if it were gold. Later, while Ethan slept on the couch, Daniel sat at the table across from Lily. He asked gently where she'd been staying, how long she'd been alone. Piece by piece, her story spilled out. Her mother had passed away months ago. Her father, a man broken by addiction, had disappeared, leaving her to fend for herself. She'd been drifting from place to place, sometimes sneaking into laundromats to stay warm, sometimes searching dumpsters for food. Daniel's chest ached as he listened. He saw himself in her words, flashes of his own childhood abandonment, the nights he went hungry, the years he wondered why no one cared enough to notice. And suddenly, he realized why fate had brought her across his path that night. "You're safe here," he told her firmly. "I don't know how yet, but we'll figure this out. You're not alone anymore." For the first time, Lily smiled, not wide, but enough to reveal hope where there had been none. The next morning, Christmas Day, Daniel woke early, staring at the ceiling with worry gnawing his chest. He barely managed to provide for Ethan. How could he take care of another child? Yet when he saw Lily curled up beside his son, both sleeping peacefully, he knew walking away wasn't an option. He made calls, reached out to social services, and explained the situation. But when he mentioned Lily's fear of being placed in another foster home after the trauma she'd endured, something inside him whispered that maybe the answer wasn't finding someone else, it was being that someone. Days turned into weeks. Paperwork, interviews, background checks, it wasn't easy. But through it all, Lily stayed with them. Slowly, she blossomed. She laughed at Ethan's silly jokes, helped Daniel cook dinner, and even began drawing pictures of their little family, 3 figures holding hands under a crooked Christmas tree. The unexpected turn came months later when Daniel received a letter from the court. His petition to foster Lily had been approved, with the possibility of adoption if things continued well. He sat at the kitchen table, the paper trembling in his hands, tears streaming down his face. When he told Lily, she didn't speak at first. She just threw her arms around him and whispered into his chest, "Thank you for choosing me." Those 5 words broke him open. Because the truth was, he hadn't just saved her that night by the dumpster, she had saved him too. She reminded him that Christmas wasn't about gifts or money. It was about love, about opening your heart even when you feel you have nothing left to give. Years later, their little family of 3 built new traditions. Every Christmas Eve, they would pack boxes of food and blankets, driving around town to hand them to anyone in need. Because Lily had once been that child in the cold, and because Daniel and Ethan knew the power of a single act of compassion. Their story spread quietly in the community, inspiring others. And though their tree was never perfect, though money was always tight, their home overflowed with something richer than gold, belonging, love, and the unshakable truth that family is not just who you're born to, it's who chooses to stand by you when the world turns away. Final message. When Daniel saw a little girl searching through trash on Christmas Eve, he thought he was rescuing her. But in reality, she rescued him too, teaching him, his son, and everyone who heard their story that the smallest act of kindness can transform lives forever. Because sometimes, the greatest Christmas gift is simply opening your door and saying, "You're not alone anymore."